All right, folks, let's dry brush today. Our basic dry brushing, which you would use for a speed paint or a slap chop method. Generally, you're going to start by choosing your color, what color you would like to dry brush. Whether you have a gray base or you've primed it black, you can do whatever you like for color. Your average beginner, at least, is going to start with just plain old solid white. That gives you an extreme sort of shading and highlighting all in one shot, so you don't have to do a whole lot of work to bring out highlights or do shading. It'll do it all its own. Also going to show you how you can get different results using different colors. So today we're going to try the Void Shield Blue, a Stone Gray, and an Elf Skin Tone. So we got those all ready to go. Next, you're going to want to pick a brush. So don't use your nice pointy brushes to do this. You will destroy them. And if you want to destroy them, by all means, but they don't work the best. You can get some dollar store makeup brushes or any shorter bristle brush. I've got a few here that are different sizes of dry brushes that are sort of more of a fatter, shorter, more firm tip, and they're not super bendy. Because you can see, like, your average sort of paintbrush, that one's not in great shape, but like, see how it sort of bends when you're doing that, and your dry brush won't really do that too much, which is what you want. So a little bit stiffer bristle. Like this one I have destroyed quite a lot, and it still does what I need it to do. And that's sort of a bigger version for some of your larger work. So today, let's show you, put that one out of the way, some dry brushing. So to start with, you're going to want to dip your brush in your chosen paint. Let's just go with this nice sort of medium-sized little one. And we'll start with a white. And then you're going to, well, maybe I won't start with the white. I will just show you, we will go with maybe this color because then you'll be able to see it better. So just sort of maybe a third. It doesn't have to be perfect. Maybe barely any paint. And then you just kind of go like this. You just brush it off on a paper towel. And you're going to want to get most of this paint off until it's kind of nothing. So you can do that on your hand. Just go, okay, well, that's probably good enough. Let's try it on this dude. He's kind of fleshy looking. Lots of muscles. Let's just use this sort of pink. And you're going to want to kind of go at different angles, moving your brush, moving the miniature. And a reasonably light touch. If you get too rowdy and press too deep, what it's going to do is it's going to go in all of the crevices. And you want this dry brushing to just hit the very outer edges of the miniature. And the more you go over it in one spot or another, the brighter it'll get. See how I went over it quite a bit here with the fresh paint on the brush, and then it's starting to lose its paint. So then you can just kind of keep doing that, brushing it on and off. You go as heavy or as not heavy, as light as you want to. So that's sort of what it would look like with this sort of light orange. Now I'll use this other little one and we'll just show you the white. That way you'll get a nice view of the difference. And it can be hard to see on the paper towel, so if you just use your hand, or like I make sure I wear a glove most of the time. Sometimes I don't, and I paint myself. And then you can see sort of the difference between where you're using the different colors. And usually I like to do it almost at like a 45-degree angle to what I'm working on, rather than straight up and down into it, just sort of at an angle over it. So now if I'm like, I want those brighter, then I just go over those areas again. Maybe I just want the tippy top parts a little brighter. That's too wet. See, like I wasn't paying attention. But whatever, that's fine. Just whatever it, that's just how we roll. And the more you go over a spot, the brighter that will get. Sometimes it can get a little tricky getting in some of the the under spaces, but you just have to have a little patience. So I think I might want, oh, I did that in the wrong color. That's fine. I want this to be a little darker right here. Just on the spots that are going to stick out the most. Or a little brighter, I guess, not darker. Just more color, like more saturated. Okay, so that's just sort of how that's gonna look. Now, if you really wanted to, you can take this another step, right? If you wanted to go crazy, you could then just go, okay, well, wherever the shadows are, you can kind of take the orange, maybe right down the middle in that crevice. This is not really that too big of a brush to do that, but maybe where the shading would fall. Back in with some white. Maybe I'll just do the tips of these shoulders. A bit white here. Go back over those yellow parts. So a little bit of white over where I put the yellow. You see how you can have just sort of all one color, whether it's white or yellow or whatever, but you can mix and match them a little bit. You want to get even a little more fun. Let's just take a little bit of the blue. Because we can. I'm going to say, okay, he's got sort of this stone under him, and we're just going to work the stone with some blue. And now the difference in tones are more subtle depending on the tones of colors you're using and the saturation. We're just going to smear this blue all over this thing. A little bit more. And yes, dry brushing can use up a little paint because you're wiping most of it off, really. But that is the price you pay for awesomeness. Just saying. Okay, then I want to take a little bit, we'll just use this one. I don't want to have to switch my brushes. We'll use a little bit of that stone color, and we'll just kind of brush over the base here. Go back into the white just a bit, just to get most of the rest of his body. Now I try and make sure I pay a little bit of attention to where the light would hit. So if he's like outside, like your light would probably hit mostly on the tops of your shoulders and the tops of your head, the parts of your body that are most exposed to the light, and not so much underneath. And that will give you a more natural shadow if you make the uppermost parts the brightest parts, like that the light would hit. Okay, so that's kind of how our little dude's gonna look for now. And then what we're gonna do is we're going to get to the next step, which is color it up. Which, I mean, isn't that everyone's almost favorite part, really, the painting. So there are a few things you can use for this kind of thing. You can use like a speed paint, which is your speed painting technique, obviously. Also slap chop. You can use washes. You can have, like, different brands have different kinds of washes. So you can use washes, which are a lot thinner and a little more watery. Speed paints, or like a contrast paint. Like we've got a black Templar. But I think we might also choose our, I'm going to take in a little of the contrast stylish purple also. Just a few different colors to show you how you can kind of mix and match after you have dry brushed your dude. I will just grab any old brush. And I think these are just craft store brushes. Like, they weren't really fancy. Again, usually I won't use my really, really nice brushes with a speed paint or anything like that because they have a tendency to really soak up into the brush. And I'm perfectly happy to destroy a dollar store brush. So first, let's look at the Aged Hide. That's a pale yellowish pink speed paint. So I've got these little 3D printed dudes on top that replace the regular caps, just so I can see, which were just dry brushed white over top of a black base, so I can see exactly how this paint is going to look. Because just looking at the paint in the bottle looks pretty dark. Looking at this, it looks pretty orange, but yet looking at this, it's got more of a reddish kind of pink hue. So I like doing that just so I have a good look at a glance what that's going to look like. And it doesn't take much, obviously, so we're just going to try that. Now let's take the Aged Hide. We're just going to do it over that brain, and then you can see what it looks like. The nice thing about painting is if you don't like how it turned out, you just wait for it to dry and paint over it. You can strip it if you want to, but you don't always have to, depending on how much paint was on it in the first place. Okay, so you can see, and it'll be more obvious as it dries, but the parts where we really made it brighter are a much lighter color. And you can see how the speed paint, it just sinks into the crevices and gives you that automatic shading and highlighting over that dry brushing. All right, so now let's do this skin wash. That's that Game Ink skin wash. Had that one for a while. I don't use it super often, but I do like that it has sort of this rusty orange kind of look to it. So let's just kind of do that over this shoulder here. So you can see this wash, it's a lot runnier and waterier. It's not as thick of a paint as the speed paints are, because it's more of a wash than a paint. So you just go as however you want to really with it. So, and that's what sort of a flesh wash would look like over that. And then let's try this Army Painter Quick Shade Strong Tone Wash. Now their washes aren't quite as sort of watery. They're more almost like a thicker consistency, like the viscosity, I guess you could say, is higher in them. Again, I did the barrel because you can't quite see how that's going to turn out without an example. And I do like to have an example. Let's just do this strong tone wash here. And you can kind of see how that kind of just gives it a little bit of color. Not a lot, but it just gives it some depth. Like, it's not the strongest wash compared to this one, which is really saturated in color. Let's go for, I'm going to do this, the contrast black Templar, just to give you an idea for all the different types of things you can do. So let's just go on this part of his arm right here. So you can see, you can imagine if we just painted that only black, you wouldn't get that depth and that detail. They would just look completely black. So the contrast paint over top of a white, like a dry brush like that, really kind of brings it out. And then let's just go have a little fun. What we're going to do is we're just going to kind of start mixing a couple of these colors together. So we're going to take this purple that I just threw out here. Let's just, because I want to maybe enhance the shading a little bit more. And I'm just going to dab some of this purple around. Maybe a little more over his front section. Let's just go down that spine. Now it's up to you how intense you want to go. With things like the contrast paints, they will kind of pool if you put too much on. So you may have to go back in sort of with a dry brush and like take a little bit out, because you can kind of see how it's pooling, because it's almost like a varnish that's colored, if you've ever used those. So that's a few different sort of ways of doing it. So then if I wanted to bring some consistency and just go back sort of into some of this orange with the red. And then I can always take a little bit of that orange and bring it into here. Just giving you an idea of the different kind of things you can do. You don't have to stick with just one color of a wash or anything like that. You can sort of mix and match. And sometimes if you feel you got a little bit extra on there, you can grab like a rag or a cloth and you can just dab it to pull some of that paint right off before it dries. Obviously, it has to be wet for you to do that. But if you feel like you've got too much on and you want a more sort of muted tone, then you can just dab some right off and do that. Now let's look at this stone here. So we'll see what it looks like if we just throw a little of the black on. We'll just do that on this part here. Okay, so that's with the black wash over the blue stone. You can see it's got this really nice kind of stone effect. Now let's see on the other hand, if we put a gray wash on it. We've got just pale gray wash. It's not going to do a whole lot, but we'll do a little something different. See if you can just kind of, wet blend it in a little bit. So what I might do is go in with this black just into the cracks and crevices, letting that blue wash or that gray wash kind of bring the blue out of the stone a little bit. You can see the different sort of effects you can get doing that. And then if you want to get a little bit extra silly, you can take something like a little green wash, which I often do. Let's say you've got, you want a little sort of moss look growing on your rock in some of the deeper spots. Then you can just sort of add that in like that. And that's sort of your general way about it. Now, if we take this, the earth shade, no, it's not an earth shade, what is it? The strong tone. Take the strong tone, it sort of is going to give it that brown look. You can add a little bit of the orange to it. That's too much. I'm just going to do this sort of. Give that earth a little bit like that. That's sort of your general, maybe a little more gray on the over top of that brown. You can just sort of mix and match your colors as you like over the dry brushing. So if we decided that we wanted a little more bright orange over top of the flesh parts, now you can go back and just do a little bit more. Whether it was over the part we did black or over the part we did red. And what that will do is, regardless of the color under it, it will bring a uniform tone to the top of the dude. So whether you've whether you've dry brushed in purple or red or blue or whatever, you can dry brush in multiple colors and then go back after you've put your other painted stuff on, and then you can dry brush again. Like, it just adds more depth to everything. I'm just going to do a little bit of orange just kind of everywhere. And then I might go back in, yep, with just a little bit of white. I don't want a lot. I just want a little bit. Just in kind of some of these little spots like this. And then it's up to you. Like, you can keep going and just do as much as you want, just experimenting. So if I wanted, I could just take another, like a red wash, and go over the whole thing. I will take a little bit of the blue again. We're just going to do this some more right here and over the earth, just because I want to, and I can. So, I mean, you've got kind of that look. And if I really wanted to, we'll just go silly. Just take some of this red wash, because it's got sort of this pinky red hue to it, which is kind of neat. And I'm just going to use maybe this little brush, will be good. And I'm just going to do it over everything. I mean, not the stone, but like the whole kind of monster. Again, it's sort of just more of a tint is what I'm looking for. And you don't have to go this far with it. You really don't. I just do because I like to see what happens. It's a little bit of an experiment. And especially if you're learning how, like, this is one of the best things to do, is just pick a mini. I mean, preferably not one that cost you $40 or something. Like, just pick a mini and just experiment on painting it. I wasn't paying attention. I was too busy talking, getting it all over the rock, which is fine. I can just deal with it. And just get it all over his whole body. Because again, I like to bring like sort of a consistent tone to a piece. So even if it's got multiple levels of color, I just like it to look awesome. So let's just take some of that out of there. And that's sort of that guy. So he's gonna dry. And like, that's fine to use. Like, it's so much better than just like an unpainted mini, isn't it? Just take a closer look at this guy here with those dry brushing effects on him. So you can kind of see how that looks like if you just sort of went with one color, that would still be fine. Like, this is just, it only looks like this, like a rainbow, because I was showing you all of the different colors. You don't have to rainbow everything. Not that you can't. You can. You can totally rainbow everything. So we're going to take this big guy right here, this big one. Then we're going to take, you can just use a standard metallic, but we're going to do it two ways. First, I'm gonna do a little bit of dry brushing here, and then we're gonna put this metallic over it. And then I'm going to take a little bit of a silver, just a silver metallic, and just dry brush a silver and an iridescent black. I think we're just gonna go with that. So we'll give you a couple of different looks at it. So I'm just gonna take a white. And we're just going to go over that, and you can see how it really brings out the details. And we're just going to do this half of him with the dry brushing, so that you can kind of see the difference. I want a little bit brighter than that in these top parts, so I'm just going to go over it some more. That might have been a little heavy, but that's fine. That's fine. It doesn't matter. We can do whatever we want, and this is just what's happening. So what I'm doing is I'm just going brighter over the front of the mini and then leaving it darker in the back to give like sort of the impression of a light shining from the front. So this is going to be in more shadow. At least that's the general idea anyway. And then we are going to do this different thing here for you. So I've got like an iridescent black. I love using, where did I put it? Oh, I love Reaper's Adamantium Black. It's a really beautiful black metallic, but I'm almost out. So I'm not going to use my precious Adamantium Black for a demo. What I am going to use is this just iridescent black from Liquitex. So I'm going to just, again, grab my big brush and just get this black on it. Now, you can dry brush just with color. Like, you don't ever have to just use white and then put other things over it. You can just dry brush. Just layer over layer, dry brushing to get a really nice effect. So we're going to start with this dark black, just to give the base a nice black sort of metallic coat, or a metallic sheen to it. And we'll just do that down here as well on this. Because I can. Because I'm in charge of me. So you can kind of see the shimmer of that black metallic. It just subtly brings out those highlights. So then while we're still waiting for this white to finish drying, I'm going to then take this iridescent rich silver, which is sort of a step up. Oops, that's too much. Whatever, that's fine. I'll use it for something else. And I'm not even going to clean my brush in between. I'm just going to dry brush this off a couple of times. And now we're just going to go over that black with this one, just a little more lightly, just over the very edges. Like I'm barely touching the brush to it at all, because I just want it light. I would rather do multiple light coats than one really thick coat and then not like it. So just go over. So again, because I want this to be the brightest part from the front, I'm just going to go over that a little more so you can see it's coming out even more. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this kind of bright silver, and then I'm going to take this littler brush, this little guy, and I just want to do the fronts, right? Because I want it to just brighten up the front parts. So you can kind of see it's brighter at the front and darker at the back. Just sort of giving that illusion of being lit from this direction. And now with this part, now we're going to show you how the Broadsword Silver Speed Paint works over just the white dry brushing. And sometimes that happens. Like, you have to be careful, because sometimes I'll just start pouring and the whatchamacallit thing, I can just use these hopefully, gets stuck in the lid. That is the danger of using those, but I like them anyway. So I'm just going to put a couple drops of that because it really doesn't take much. And then I will take that and I will just go over. Now the Broadsword Silver has this nice sort of deep purpley hue to it, which gives a really lovely sort of aesthetic. And it's up to you again how heavy or dark you go with it. So you can kind of see, I mean, it'll be more obvious once it dries. It has a very similar sort of vibe, but on this side we've just only dry brushed and then used a metallic speed paint. And then on this side, we dry brushed 3 different colors of actual metallic paint. So like when you're dry brushing, you don't have to put a wash or anything over it, but you can if you want to. So here's what would happen to this side. Now, if I just took a little bit of this black contrast and I just kind of went over some of these more inner parts, you can kind of use it as a bit of a wash if you're careful. I could also use a little bit of a blue wash. I'm feeling silly. And kind of show you just what a blue wash might look like. So we can do that a bit on the gun there. Now I don't use a lot of washes over a metallic unless I'm going to go back over them, which I will do on this one after. I will go back over it a bit. So you can kind of just dab a little bit of color if you want to. You don't have to do any of it. Use a little bit of the black wash just in the crevices, just to give it a bit of something. Especially if you want the black to look like it's a little more shaded. In the under parts. And I just use my fingers to dab it a lot, because that's just what I do. So then you can see sort of you get a little bit of variation in the color. And then if I wanted to, I could go back over it a little bit more just with that bright silver. Just on some parts, and you could do that too on this side, right? Like if you feel like, oh, it just needs to be a little brighter, you can dry brush over top. I did not wipe my paint off enough. You can dry brush over top of your speed paints and do it again, right? To just add a little more depth and a little more sort of excitement to what's going on. I mean, that's a pretty stellar looking little dude, and you can see sort of the difference in styles and techniques there.